Got it. Yay, and I'm supposed to have a quorum. So I'm just going to hang out and believe I'm going to get a quorum. Three people said they're coming. Oh, I have to admit people here. Oh. So, hi, Ed, how are you doing? You're all right. You're on mute, but I read your lips. Oh, we have Connor. Yay.
Yeah, I'm all right.
Okay. That was an unenthusiastic I'm all right, but that's okay.
No, it's
Hello?
about it.
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, hi, Connor.
Hello, Laura. How are you?
Good. How are you doing?
Good. It's been a rough month. We had a very rough sweep of COVID in our home, but all we're out the other side.
Well, yeah, and COVID is a little bit of a long road. We had COVID back in May, and it seemed to even 2 weeks later, family members said, "Oh, are you 100% yet?" 2 weeks later, we were maybe 80%. We didn't get to be 100% for a while later. It hung on a bit for us. Everybody's COVID journey seems to be different, but it certainly hung
Yeah, a little
on
bit.
with us for a while. But anyway, Ed, you were telling me how you were doing, and
I'm all right. I haven't had COVID, and you have to keep every time you get COVID, the danger to your health increases. So you have
yes,
to avoid continually getting it, because
yes.
I have friends and I know people who have a lot of trouble with long-term COVID. And so the idea is to prevent getting it more than once.
Well, and so you guys, there are so many people that I know that have had it at least once. And so good for you for totally avoiding it.
You haven't had it at all?
No.
Ed? Wow.
I used
this is
to
my
tour
first time, and I was impressed.
I used to tour to Europe 3 or 4 times a year, and I used to tour all over the United States, to colleges, and I haven't done that in almost 3 years. So I wear a mask everywhere. I don't go out. I don't go to parties. I don't go to restaurants. I don't go out. And
that's the way to do it.
And it's all right. I get a lot more writing done.
Yay. So we do have a quorum. David Menzies said he was coming. Jeff Collins said he's not coming. And Michael Castiglione, I know, he's had some personal things he's had to address. And I think we're not going to see Michael until he tells us he's back. So in any event, I don't ask for status from Michael every time there's a meeting. I figure when he's ready, he'll be back. So he's got some important stuff he's going on. So anyway, so I'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. I'll say 6:35 meeting. So we're good. And thank you all we have more than a quorum. Thank you all for being here. I will share my screen. And so I'll go through the agenda, and then the main topic today is to go through the scenic overlay, have a work session. But so the agenda items, and we'll kind of cover everything else so that we can get to that. The status, which I kind of put right in the agenda that you might have already read, but we've had two laws that the Housing Oversight Task Force has been shepherding through the system. One of them is housing oversight, the water supply protection and the regulating wireless telecommunications. And those two, we had the public hearing last Tuesday. For the water supply protection, the only public comment was somebody asking, can you explain it? And I explained it. For the regulating wireless, the only comments were a lot of people spoke out in support of it. So as the supervisor normally does, he holds over the public hearing. If he closes the town board meeting with the public hearing still open, with the idea that at our next meeting, he'll close the public hearing. And he did ask all the town board members, how do you feel about both of these laws? Everybody said that they support them. So that's a great thing. So the expectation is on December 13th, when the town board meets again, we're expecting to have a resolution and a unanimous vote yes for both of these laws. So I want to thank the zoning revision committee, because everything is a team effort here. So and water supply protection law went way back before the zoning revision committee. We inherited it and we shepherded along to bring it to the end point here. So we're, fingers are crossed, but we're just a few weeks away from the end point. So it's looking just about 2 weeks in a day away from the end point for both of these laws. So that's looking really good. So Jeff, Michael, and I, although Michael hasn't been available for a little while, anyway, we still continue on the Housing Oversight Task Force. Version 2 rewrite is almost complete. There's an executive summary that is near completion. And so the idea is that the Housing Oversight Task Force will bring these laws back to the town board sometime in December is the plan. So anyway, that's continuing. And I'll be very interested in this committee taking a look when we get version 2, because there's a lot of information sharing. There are a lot of updates were made based on people's input, but there's also some information sharing and explanations, because sometimes in some cases what people said, if they understood more, they might not, there's some things where, because people just need to understand things better. Some things may fall into what they said was the latest correspondence I had from the leaders of the Housing Oversight Task Force. There are some things that were appropriate for the Housing Oversight Task Force to address. There are other things that weren't central to what the Housing Oversight Task Force is trying to do. And there may be a list that they give to us as the Zoning Revision Committee to say, well, here are some things that were kind of outside Housing Oversight Task Force's mission, but still could be important, and the Zoning Revision Committee might look at it. So we may get some to-dos out of the Housing Oversight Task Force. They're working on I'm part of it. We are working on what the mission of that task force is, but other things may fall out that would be done later by perhaps us. So that's what's going on there. Today, we're going to do the work session. We have one more meeting between now and the end of the year. That's December 12th. That's just 2 weeks from tonight. No meeting planned for December 26th. I think we deserve a meeting off during the holidays. And then I asked Melanie to set up meetings through June, 2nd and 4th Monday. So I think that we're pretty good on that. Future things we can talk about. Again, today's topic really is scenic overlay work session. We can talk about the same status I gave you. I can tell you what the status is. Hopefully I guess there won't be a lot of news on these two because we meet before the town board meets. But anyway, we just talked about Housing Oversight Task Force may recommend that we follow up on some topics. We still want to look at the NCLI 1 law and see, we ought to make a formal response to that law. So of things that we do is we get the scenic overlay law further along and we start resuming work on things or picking up things. That's one of the things that I think that we should look at. It's part of our mission from the comp plan. The Complete Streets sent us a statement like almost a year ago that we can, 9 months ago anyway, that we can look at what they asked for to consider. there could be a noise law or a tree law that, and I'm not sure if the noise is within zoning or not. The tree law, pretty sure is zoning. But anyway, so there's some other things. So we'll discuss together the list of things that we might work on and what our priority is. But so all that being said, I kind of went through the agenda. Do I have anybody make a motion to adopt the agenda?
I'll
Yeah.
do that. Can we add a few things to future meeting plans, or should we do that another time?
I'm happy to, if it's on your mind now, I'm happy to add it. And I'll say, and I'll second the adopting the agenda. All in favor? Aye. Anybody? Yay. Okay, passed. Perfect. Well, so, and Jude, I would love to have you add things to the future meeting ideas. Yes, go ahead.
There was some discussion about just taking a look at the sign law.
Yes.
That's something that the ZBA has brought up and has asked about, and I said that was going to be addressed.
Yes.
There's a few little things that could probably make things easier. I think that there were a lot of definitions and things. There was some, and maybe the housing oversight people will address it, but I don't think so. And then the last thing I just want to mention, which is not an agenda item, is there was an article that I'm going to send around to everybody, which is about the person who was a former head of Airbnb, who's developed this company that is producing manufactured accessory dwelling units. And what the article says is they look an awful lot like Airbnbs. So I just want to send that around because that has been my concern all along with increasing the number of accessory dwelling units that every property can have. And I don't know what the second rewrite is going to look like, but it's still a major concern for a lot of people.
And I will say, in my opinion, the second rewrite will look a lot like the first rewrite because there are some tweaks, but not a ton. But I will say the other thing is ADUs are allowed today and people aren't rushing out doing a lot of ADUs. So the law provides for ADUs today, but people aren't rushing out and doing it. They could go out and do 2 ADUs, but there's still an STR law that says any person can only have 1 STR. So we're not changing, we're not upping, we're not raising, nobody's talking about raising the number of STRs that can be done in town. And nobody's talking about, and also nobody's talking about, giving any particular any one owner more than 1. So, but the other thing I'm going to add here is I'm going to add STR law because we're the zoning revision committee and because people, we're a good, I am delighted, I have to say, because we're the zoning revision committee, I know I was involved in these 2 laws that we're about to pass. And I had the benefit of this committee because I reviewed a lot of stuff. I asked a lot of questions. I always bounce things off of this committee because I value the input from people on this committee. So I think these laws, some of them were written, the wireless was written by Andrew Campanelli. The water supply protection was actually written by Steve Winkley. So we had professionals help us do this, but our committee helped gel it, make it right, and bring it to completion, which, if you don't bring things over the finish line, what good is it, right? So I think that this committee has been very significant. So the STR law, whether or not we'll get that, but it might be good if we look at it because I think that it needs to have another look. And I don't think anybody else on the board is actually actively doing that right now. So that may be something else we look at because I think that the ADUs, the control of the STRs is going to come on the STR law. ADUs allow more housing, but the STR law is what allows STRs. And if we have the right controls over the STR law, then I'm not worried about ADUs turning into STRs. Because we're already at the cap. We already have people complaining that, well, I can't get my STR in because you're at the cap. So I am getting complaints from people that want an STR and they can't do it because of the cap. So I think the cap is working. It's not making everybody happy, but it's, the people who've been in Woodstock for generations want it, and it's working for the people that have been in Woodstock for generations.
Don't want to really get off on a tangent, but there are a lot of illegal STRs. And the question that I also have is, if people are not running out and constructing ADUs, why are we increasing the number that's allowed? But we don't have to go into that because I think we should do scenic overlay. I just want to throw it out there. I'm going to send that article around and.
Okay,
and look
well,
at it.
Yeah, I do want to agree that I mean STR law and the noise ordinance I think should be a high priority for next year. I don't want to get into it either too much, but the noise ordinance is causing a lot of contention in the town, and I think it's something that honestly is not overly complicated. There are a lot of conversations being had right now, and we could probably, if we really focused on it, have it be a quick one, wrap it up before the spring for the next season.
I agree with you. I do and I don't agree. And the reason why I think the noise law might not be quick is I do know that Bennett and Maria Elena many months ago held a public forum, we'll call it, or a public be heard. Come on out, come to the community center, tell us what you think about the noise ordinance. And I attended, and then I had to leave because there was another meeting I had to go to. So
Yeah,
I attended like.
And Laura, I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt. It's just we've spoken about that months ago, to be honest with you, and I don't want to discuss it anymore because that months ago was months before the last months ago. We've had meetings at the colony that Bill showed up to. There were a lot of interested people in seeing something move forward, and without disparaging, certainly not disparaging Maria Elena or Bennett, but I don't think we need to wait on them. And I don't think we should wait on them because a lot of these things, a lot of these issues can get stalled up in committees.
Absolutely.
And get stalled up in there, and all of a sudden this thing that's causing a lot of heartache to not just to businesses but to people, you know, who
Yes.
this is like an important issue for them, and cultural and otherwise, causes them distress. So no, I don't think we should be waiting on Maria Elena or anyone to be looking at this. It's not that complicated. I have the vernacular and a lot of interested people wanting to see somebody move forward with this. I think that can be us.
Yes, and I agree with you 100%. And I think, and that's why I'm so delighted that we're seeing the fruits of our labor. Two extremely significant laws are, less than a month away from getting passed. Fingers crossed, knock on wood. But in any event, I think that that's evidence of, these are huge successes for our committee. So I'm delighted. Hi, David.
There's Dave.
Yeah.
Well, that being said, I would love to see the noise ordinance land on our schedule soon, just for a brief discussion, because there is a lot of information already for us to take a look at, and
okay, and that sounds perfect. And what I will say quickly though, when I did go to that session, and you say there's been communication since that session, but I do know that there are people that have the venues and people that are musicians that want to be able to do more. And then there are the neighbors that say, I'm getting a headache, I'm 80 years old, I didn't sign up for this next door to me. So I know that, so my belief is there are people that are very strongly on both sides. And when I did go to that session a while back, the people that spoke were half and half. Some people saying shut it down, some people saying we need more. So, but anyway, but I agree with you. So I think so I've highlighted noise and STR law as the things that sounds like people on this call are interested in moving to the top of the list. So anyway, so that's, and this is, and I believe that we as a committee ought to be deciding this. So if we decide, at our next meeting, oh, we're going to shuffle the list, but this is how it stands today, and we'll talk about it, and then we'll pick one or two things. And it's possible to do two things in parallel. So we'll proceed the way we decide as a group to proceed next time we talk. But here's our list at the moment. So
sounds good.
Okay. All that being said, we have an approved agenda. Yay! We covered all these topics. So scenic overlay is the next thing that I wanted to look at. And let me actually do save, file, close. Okay. So where we left off, I'm taking it from the top, and I thought I said something start here. I thought it said start here somewhere. Yay, it says start here. So I'll kind of take it from the top. and kind of quickly go down. Of proposed zoning law update. Yeah, I took what the Housing Oversight Task Force proposing zoning law update said and just kind of showed it here. Scenic overlay district. It talks about the scenic overlay district. Establish protect the scenic character and require a special permit review of all development elevation greater than 1,200 feet above sea level is delineated, blah, blah, blah. And then the document, Connor, that you and Ed worked on, that this committee looked at about a month ago, I think, and Ed was here, and Connor, I think that you were unable to attend, but we took a stab at it. So standards. I'm just going to scan down through here. And so the red strikeout is what would go away. I think the blue is what I added when we talked before. I'll just let everybody take a quick read of that before I scroll forward.
I believe we reviewed that with the planning board, so that's good.
Okay, I'll assume everybody's read it. Okay. And then I think what happened is after the meeting, I think Ed sent a paragraph. So I struck out what we had and I put in what I received.
Yeah, that solves all the problems raised by Jeff, you know. And it's a simple thing to do. The town is going to have to pay a little money to hire somebody to put together a current list of property owners in the scenic overlay districts. And then they can check it, you know, when an application comes in for a building permit in the scenic overlay district, you know, you can see if the property is actually in the scenic overlay district by going on the town website and looking at the list of all properties.
Right, okay. So I'm going to delete my comment and I'm going to delete this item because we've looked at it. I can put it back if people think I need to put it back, but for now, I've removed it.
So my question about this, it sort of goes back to the same issue that has been happening, which is, yes, if somebody comes in for a building permit, the town will know whether or not they're in the scenic overlay. I think that paragraph that Jeff objected to was trying to address those people who claim ignorance or do things without a permit.
Yeah,
Trees or
can you add that back? I was trying to fix my microphone. Yeah, I don't think that does it, to be honest with you, because I mean, don't get me wrong, the computerization I think is its own worthy endeavor for the sake of cataloging development in the scenic overlay and having a better means of keeping track of it as it happens. But in terms of communicating an understanding of the standards directly to applicants, I mean, that's what this is about. This is about essentially removing the deniability.
Yeah, no, I agree that the principle's good, but the actual, Jeff pointed out that a lot of real estate transactions are not done necessarily in person anymore. There's people buying real estate who are in Paris, buying them in New York City or buying them in Woods, you know, so you won't see the face or be in the presence of a real estate agent during a property.
but here's really the question, which is that whether or not, whether or not they're there in person, we could put this document in front of them, read it to them out loud, ask them if they understand it, and they might not understand it. I mean, they might lie to you or just blow you off or whatever. But if they sign that document, that means they're essentially saying we do understand this, and that not adhering to those standards, will come with potential financial penalty.
Well, I think that,
Don't you need, I think then you'd need this attached to the deed, the county registered at the county clerk's office for the property. So, I mean, that way, any lawyer in some other city that's handling a transaction regarding a Woodstock property will see when they look at the deed that it's in a certain district. I mean, that's only, but that seems to me to be really impossible to enact because it's probably governed by at least a county law or perhaps even a state law regarding what's proper to be put on a deed. That's why I thought the best thing is to get the town to set up a common pot of.
well, the other thought that I have though, and I agree that there's going to be an issue that a realtor or a lawyer, how are we possibly going to notify every realtor and lawyer that exists in the world who could possibly touch a transaction in Woodstock? There's no way we're going to get the word out to everybody. So maybe it happens in the assessor's office. The assessor is the one who knows when a property got purchased. Maybe we should be asking the assessor's office to send a certified letter to every new property owner. So maybe once the property shows up on the assessor's roll, then the assessor sends out a certified letter talking about, the things for the scenic overlay people. So the idea of the computerized list.
But all right, let's say you do that, but the assessor, I don't think has knowledge of whether the property's in the scenic overlay or not.
But if we do what you say here, have a computerized list of all properties.
Okay, so then we would require the assessor.
Right.
The language on this section would have to be changed.
Right.
I do really like that idea though, Laura. I mean, it's, and Ed, of course. I think both of those combine to achieve the end, because to be honest, the most important thing to me with this is that there be, again, I'm not trying to say in some kind of, I don't know, Minority Report way, but some kind of proactive measure to make sure that we have done our diligence in informing to the best as we can. And that way, at least we have something to fall back on when we then turn around and say, hey, you violated, the scenic overlay. Now remediation must begin as per. There you go. So thank you. I really do. I love that idea.
You're welcome. Okay. So I'm typing my changes, and for some reason it's not showing up in a color, but it's already underlined. So maybe that is it. By the assessor who will notify.
Tax bills are sent out by the town clerk, right?
Correct.
So they maybe ones who would insert language, a card or something in the tax bill. Is that
well? I mean, they could, but my thought is the assessor knows as soon as the person bought the property.
Right.
The assessor, and so my thought is if it's the assessor, because they'll know each time a new owner is in Woodstock, and so my thought is if the assessor does it, I don't know if they'd be willing to do it, but in any event, new property owners in the.
It's not going to be all that frequent. It's not like they're going to be processing 100 of them, right? Okay.
Cool.
That's the hope, right? To make sure that maybe if we send a big kind of blast out the first time, but I don't know if it's hard to imagine it being more than a trickle going forward.
Right.
I'm sure we don't want to encourage any a development in that area that would be intense enough to
Right.
have that be a concern. I hope not.
Well, what happens when assessment, some new ownership of a piece of land is sent to the assessor, right? I mean, or they
Mhm.
get,
They get it from the county
the county sends it to them?
to the town when a sale goes through, yes.
Okay, so the assessor gets this information.
Mhm.
So it
I mean,
should be
really, the whole
easy.
process. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Ed. I'm sorry.
No, I just say it should be not that burdensome. We don't want to have a complaint from the assessor that the demand is burdensome. But if we can say that it only happens to a few properties a year, it's not a burden. And we want the
And-
assessor to do it, because that way the clerk has to do everything from hunting licenses, wedding licenses, complaints of the public on this and that. So they're the ones that are burdened, but the assessor lives in
Yeah,
a
no, I don't think it'll be unreasonable. I mean, the thing is if we computerize a database, I mean, it's not really that far of a stretch to think that this whole process could be automated. You have a template letter. If these things exist in any kind of Excel, you just have it plug in name, address, date of sale, and then the rest of the letter that explains, the constraints on the property, and send a return envelope and have
Well,
whatever kind of.
who sends out this letter? The assessor?
Well,
Or
that's ultimately the question. I mean, like I don't know what you can and can't do in terms of sending mail, but you could imagine the assessor could do it. You could imagine that, again, if we automate the process, if the town could just have it printed by a service, like I forget, there's mail.com and all kinds of stuff like that, where, when that process gets triggered and a property sells, maybe it lights up in the database once the assessor enters it. That triggers an order to go in for a mailer with that template information, and no one has to touch it.
that's
possible,
a good idea,
all
but
I'm
it's
saying.
all got to be codified in a system to.
So theoretically, what could happen is the assessor would have the information to know when a property is in the scenic overlay. Technically, that notification should go to the building department. The building department, the zoning enforcement officer, is probably the one who should send that letter, right?
I totally agree with that. Yeah, I mean, and maybe again that could be part of the automation, or you could have it come from the office. It's a boilerplate thing.
Right.
It's not like Butch has to send these things out. But who's to say that if the computerized database that Ed is artfully proposing could again take a prompt from the assessor and have the output be labeled from the CEO.
Right.
And
Okay.
again, no one has to touch it. It could go through two departments and no one actually needs to do anything.
Yeah, okay.
Except for the applicant and sign it. Read it.
All right, so we can keep the,
So I'm rearranging this to what I think I heard.
all right, what does it read now?
Well, I'm changing it again based on what I heard, so I don't read it yet. Sure. Property.
Well, the language we have now says a website in order to be consulted by the zoning enforcement officer or the planning board whenever an application for a building permit. So
Well, yeah, but I think that what I heard is first there's a database, Second, whenever the assessor is aware that a property has a new owner, the assessor will consult that database and see whether the new owner is in the scenic overlay. And if so, they'll notify the zoning enforcement officer, who will send a letter out, a certified letter to the new property owner saying, zoning enforcement, here's the deal. So I think that we said it's the three-step thing. Create the database. Assessor is going to know when there's a new property owner. They will alert the zoning enforcement officer, who will send the letter to the new property owner.
That
So
has
that's
to be put into the law then.
well,
I
that's
think
what
that's
that's
a
what.
good assessment of the process. It can be obviously, you know, very hands off, but the biggest question is how does the initial prompt get entered? Because the whole thing from there could be hands off, but it would basically be either, you know, the assessor themselves have to click a button, check a box, yes, this, you know, to select that it has met this criteria, and then again, the way I would phrase it then is when the assessor is notified of a new property owner within the scenic overlay,
Yeah, I'm actually kind of doing it. So let me just kind of finish doing it, and then you can fix it after I've done it.
Sure. I would just say notify the zoning enforcement officer to send a what we'll call it to the new property owner.
Right. Whoops.
Yeah.
I think the second part is about application, so that's separate from a new purchase.
Right.
So that's good.
Okay, so I'll even put that in a separate paragraph so that it looks a little better.
Yep.
Right, so the first, okay,
I like that. I think I like that.
okay. So can I get rid of this now?
Yeah.
I put that back so we can,
My only question, and it's totally a question, is do we want to make any specific notice in this law to stipulate that the purpose of these mailers, like if you look at the verb, that the purpose of these mailers is to stipulate that violating the standards will cause their special use permit and certificate of occupancy to be revoked? Because I do feel that needs to be made clear for sure in the letter. The question is, should we tack that on to the end of your paragraph?
yeah, yes, we should. So, and so first of all, I'm just gonna get rid of, very good, very good. Yeah, okay. There.
Good.
So let me, okay, so let me just reread it. Okay, so I am going to get rid of this now. I think we've got it now because we've kept it in-house, and which is I think where it should be. Okay.
You know, there's the ZBA has talked about, you know, can we just send some kind of mailer out to the realtors in town, basically saying, we have a zoning law. You know, inform your buyer that, you know, just because we feel like so many people do things. And after the fact, you know, they come to us for variance. So, you know, there has been some discussion. It's like, is there something that can be done? Just some awareness campaign, not anything legal, just to try to raise awareness. And I think I mentioned this when I was on the planning board. John Lewis wanted to put signs, you know, some towns have signs entering the town of. And he wanted, like, entering the town of Woodstock, zoning laws apply, or zoning laws enforced, or zoning laws, however you wanted to put it. But he did want something to sort of notify people that we have this law and we do adhere to it. And, you know, it sort of, that died back in, you know, the 90s, but it's not a bad idea. People at the time felt like, oh, it's unfriendly. But, you know, I really feel like at this point, it has to be kind of out there. It can't be some subtle thing that people find out about after the fact.
Yeah.
Well,
So I think-
that's one of the things I'm actually very curious to see where we land on, you know, a fine structure, because again, nothing says in these zoning laws are enforced like enforcing the zoning laws, and that's a big
Yeah.
thing
There you go.
now.
So,
And
okay.
not that I disagree. I don't disagree with you, though, Jude. That was not in
No,
contrast. And
just information, you know, getting people so they're aware and they think about it. And, you know, there was an article that, you know, Hurley just hired a zoning enforcement officer, and people were complaining, and they were saying, well, we expect to pay this person's salary with the fines we're going to collect. And then that led me to think, does Woodstock collect fines?
Well, it's a tricky
very
thing.
rarely. And it shouldn't. I think we need to untrick it a little bit, because I mean, some of these
that's
are
easier.
pretty.
It's easier said than done, because then you say the zoning enforcement officer says, I haven't heard Butch say it, but I mean, Ellen before him would say, well, you go through all this work to take something into court, and then the judges take it out of court and they don't instill the fine. So it's a team effort. So it's a team effort.
I mean, but though, again, you know, I think if we, you know, govern as individuals, as neighbors, people trying to make things better, when the buck stops at the court and people, you know, start hearing about that, then maybe we know where to put some of the campaign funds for Jude's next step, you know, let's enforce the law campaign. You know, I would rather see this go through our process and have there be repercussions that they at least have to show up for before a judge starts throwing out case after case after case, and that maybe has to start answering why.
Yeah. Well, yeah. And so it's, yeah.
I don't want to assume, I don't want to write laws assuming that, you know, there's no interest out there in enforcing them. We've got new judges and a new CEO.
Yeah, I mean, you're right about all those things. I do know that it is still trickier than that, and I know, and you can't tell a judge what to do. I'll tell you that too. But in any event, we'll get this. Okay, so I'm just going to reread it one more time. Okay, to ensure compliance with zoning regulations pertaining to scenic overlay district by property owners in the scenic overlay district, the town of Woodstock shall create a computerized list of all properties within the scenic overlay district, which shall be placed on the Woodstock town website. The assessor, when a property has a new owner, will consult the list, and for properties in the scenic overlay, will notify the zoning enforcement officer of the new property owner in the scenic overlay. The zoning enforcement officer will notify the new property owner.
Wait, stop.
Okay.
Properties in the scenic overlay, and then you have in the scenic overlay twice in that sentence.
Yes. Well, yeah. Okay.
Starting at the assessor.
Right.
Okay.
Twice.
The assessor, when a property has a new owner, will consult the list for properties in the scenic overlay, will notify the zoning enforcement officer of the new property owner in the scenic overlay. I'm saying it twice because the zoning.
That's all right. Redundancy is good sometimes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
But because the thing about it is, the assessor is going to say, if the property is in the scenic overlay, they're going to notify the zoning enforcement officer of the new property in the scenic overlay. So he's looking to see if it's a scenic overlay, and then he's got to tell the CEO that it's in the new scenic overlay. So I think it's okay. The ZEO will notify the new property owner in the scenic overlay via certified mail that they are in the scenic overlay district. And sometimes we say scenic overlay and scenic overlay district.
Right.
It's a
That's
lot of
all right.
words.
No, that's all right.
Well,
All right. Go ahead.
yeah, I know
Okay.
it's a lot of words, but it's law, and we don't want it to have have wiggle room.
Yeah.
The zoning enforcement officer will notify the new property owner in the scenic overlay district via certified mail that they are in the scenic overlay district, attaching a copy of zoning law 26066 pertaining to the scenic overlay district, stating that they are required to follow the zoning law 26066 regulations, and stating, I'll say, that violating these standards at any time may cause their special use permits and I'll say or certificates of occupancy to be revoked. That's a pretty strong paragraph.
I think it's good.
I think so too. I really like what we've done with
The
it.
next paragraph's got problems.
Okay. well, one thing at a time. So we like the first paragraph. So we're moving to the next one. The zoning enforcement officer or the planning board, whenever an application for a building permit, and I don't like or, because who would be doing it? The ZEO or the planning board? If somebody's asking for a building permit, wouldn't the ZEO be doing that? Because why would the planning board send? Well, I guess the planning board knows that there's an application for special use
special
permit.
use permit. Yeah.
Right.
Special use permit is also sent to the planning board by the ZEO. It all starts from the ZEO.
That's my thought is maybe the ZEO.
Well, here's the thing though, and what I will say, I mean, again, I don't have like a silver bullet for this, but like sometimes the planning board's the one to figure some of this stuff out. I'm just saying I've seen it happen where
Yeah, well, you're right about that.
Where
Yeah.
something trickles down and giving and maybe stipulating that the planning board has the motive, the authority, somewhat the authority, but also, the motive operandi to raise
Does-
this to an elevated concern and make sure that they're informed of their status.
Does Butch handle short-term rentals also now? I mean, he used to, but
The building department has
They just
more,
hired someone, right, Laura?
Oh, yes, we did.
Yeah.
so Butch no longer handles short-term rentals, right?
Well, I think Butch is, we have a new hire. So we have a new hire, and I would say that Butch is the department head. So I think the buck stops with Butch, even though we have a new hire. That's my opinion at the moment. When the new hire becomes independent, there may be a split of.
Okay,
of
no, I'm just saying Butch can't say that he's being overwhelmed. All right.
Oh, well, he can. He's still training a new guy.
Yeah, well, Paul Schultes used to show me his 2-foot stack of complaints he had to deal with, and the
Yeah.
planning.
Yeah.
I
great.
mean, in the zoning enforcement office. So it's always a huge stack of things to do.
Okay. So I put down the zoning enforcement officer or the planning board whenever an application for a building permit or special use permit respectively, meaning if it's a building permit, it's the ZEO does it. If it's a special use permit, the planning board. So adding the word respectively hopefully ties ZEO to building permit and planning board to special use permit. Is submitted by a property owner will determine if the property owner is within or part of the scenic overlay district. And if within, then remind the applicant they are required to follow the regulations and zoning law pertaining to the scenic overlay district. I mean, we could
All
also
right.
add, and that stating violating.
No, but it doesn't include, they don't have to remind the applicant if the property is only a part of the scenic overlay district.
When you say determine if the property is within or a part of, I'm not quite sure what you're saying there, actually. If the property is either in or it's not in the scenic overlay, what do you mean by within?
Well,
or
if within, then why? Within means totally within the 1,200
right?
foot thing, and
Are you
part,
talking about people that are like partly over the line? That does
Right.
happen from time
yeah,
to time.
so you're saying if within or a part. No, right over here to the right.
I
Is
said
with-
property is within or partly within.
All right, okay, Okay,
then I'm not sure why we have if within, whether within or partly within, you'd have to either way,
yeah.
right?
All right, that's good. That's all right.
Mhm.
Okay.
That
Should I
straightens
put,
it up.
okay, should I put that,
No, you know, you could, but this codifies it for the
Mm.
whole law. I mean,
right,
you could do that, but it might be, you know, people have to read this and understand it. So this
right.
just clarifies that you mean if part of a property is
Mhm.
in the scenic overlay, then these regulations also apply.
Okay, okay. So I'm gonna scroll down. Okay, so we've looked at that. And then so we're saying we're changing the 300 feet to 150.
So you have to change that accessory structure. 150 also under the line beneath it. An addition or an accessory structure is the line below.
Right. Okay. Oh, I thought that was there. Did that go away? Prior to the issuance of building permit for the construction of a new house, in addition to square feet for or accessory structure exceeding. So Connor, you meant to have this also be
100.
the same, that you meant to have this be the same, I think.
It is in a prior period.
Yes, yes, let's just,
You meant to have that be the same. Okay.
wasn't that in the previous paragraph? I guess we're being extra thorough.
Well, something was.
Mhm.
Yeah, yes.
Yeah, there it is.
Yeah, within the scenic overlay, the construction of houses square feet
Those are the standards.
shall be subject to special use permit, all development, blah, blah, blah. So then we talk about to ensure compliance, and then A, prior to issuance of the building
No, okay,
permit.
yeah, no, this makes sense. I get it.
Okay.
Okay.
Building permit,
So it's clarifying that those smaller things should go for planning board review. And this was kind of a way, if I remember correctly, of not starting to get down a big list of what does and does not
mhm,
qualify for review. I mean, you know, you could say 150 square foot change,
mhm.
you know, maybe on one side of the house is fine. But then again, you know, if you cut down a ton of trees to put down a deck, a pool, or whatever else, that's, you know, very different. So this is just, you know, an extra
Right.
layer of protection.
Yeah, okay, all right. Included in site review are decks and pools. I'm just gonna kind of go. I think that the blue is what we added when we talked before. Maybe I guess I'm not sure what the blue is at this point, but that's okay. Let's see, building colors. I don't think we had a lot of conversation about this. I think people were pretty happy with this. So let me know when you want me to scroll.
Okay, go ahead. Oh, for me at least, sorry.
Okay, all right.
Now this was one we really worked on a lot. So
Okay, well, that's probably G, right? So
yeah.
I'm gonna scroll up.
This is kind of like the unifying text of clarifying what it means to minimize tree cutting.
Right.
I would probably put non-essential tree cutting maybe all in the quotations. It's if we're thinking of it as one phrase or as non-essential. Why do we?
Well, I think non-essential is the
Okay.
phrase. Yeah, the non-essential tree cutting.
Trees have. I'm just trying. It feels like it reads a little weird, but non-essential tree cutting.
Okay. Well, that's why we're kind of going through it.
No, that makes sense. Okay. Awesome. Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, I think it looks pretty good.
I
And we did
agree.
cross out critical because all trees are critical. So instead of people trying to define is it critical or not critical.
I like that.
Okay, so I'm going to scroll up. The drone footage.
Who is a legally licensed drone operator?
I know actually a few in the area.
Okay.
The two who come to mind off the top are David Lax, who I've brought in to give demonstration footage to the planning board before. I don't remember if he came to this committee as well.
Yeah,
but,
you did.
And then we also have Chris. He operates Nevessa Studios.
Oh, yeah, Chris
Um,
Anderson.
uh, yeah, Chris Anderson. He is, I believe, also a licensed drone operator.
You
Got
know,
some very fancy toys.
yeah, didn't know that was a thing.
Yeah, you have to get a certification. I don't remember how intensely, but it's FAA regulated. You know, those things, once they fly up, you're in airspace. I had a
Yeah.
very creepy experience. A drone flew pretty low into my property the other day. It was looked like it was spying on Meg.
So, okay. So I'm watching my clock and I know that I think it's going to be a longer discussion to go into, I think the
Well, do you
fines.
want to just hit the edits? Because I think we're almost there. I'm down to go a little longer.
Oh, okay. All right. Sounds good. So we'll start here. This is what we didn't look at before.
Okay.
The following uses and activities are prohibited in the scenic overlay district. Clear cutting is part of commercial logging, except as provided, blah, blah. And all non-essential tree removal and all non-essential tree removal or chopping and limited trees in any parcel located in scenic overlay district, and commencing or engaging in tree removal modification on any parcel in the scenic overlay prior to receiving in hand a special use permit for the clear cutting. Commencing or engaging in tree removal for any parcel prior to receiving in hand, especially by fine up to foot. Now the thing about this, though, well, a couple things about this. So, the following uses are prohibited. Clear cutting is part of commercial logging operation, except as provided, and all non-essential tree removals. So clear cutting is different from non-essential tree removal that you just defined. Commencing or engaging in tree removal modification on any parcel prior to receiving a permit for clear cutting, but then it gets confusing if you talk about if you do non-essential tree removal, but then you say you have to first have a clear cutting permit, but what if they want to do non-essential tree removal? Because we just said you can't do non-essential tree removal. So this seems a little weird because you're not going to get a permit for clear.
I think maybe what we need to say then is receiving in hand a special use permit for the
Clear cutting
would it be
and
especially
non-essential tree removal. Just add non-essential tree removal after the word clear cutting.
Yeah, that's
clear cutting or non-essential tree removal.
So you have to decide if you're going to put this in quotes, the non-essential, or if you're going to take the quotes out of the previous paragraph.
Well, I like the quote.
Sorry.
I like the quotes up higher because we're defining non-essential up higher. So
yeah,
I like having the quotes up here because here's where you're defining it.
Okay.
And I'm not feeling like we have to put quotes every time we use it then after that.
Yeah, I like that. I think that's good.
Okay. So clear cutting is part of commercial. Okay, the following uses are prohibited. Clear cutting, and all non-essential tree removal. Both of these things are prohibited. Commencing or engaging in a tree removal modification on any parcel in scenic overlay prior to receiving in hand, or a special use permit for non-essential tree removal, right? Would you have, if they want to do non-essential tree removal, would that be a special use permit? Well, we've already told them they can't do it.
Well, the thing is that I guess that's the thing is that I would say that then rather than non-essential, essential. right? Because non-essential would, if it's going to be approved, it's going to be because it is essential tree removal. It will impact the safety. Or perhaps, or perhaps it's so minor in scope that, you know, there's reasons why it could be approved. I'm not crazy about on it. The more I look at it, commencing or engaging in tree removal and modification on any parcel of the scenic over special use permit.
Well, so I think we're talking about.
I honestly think we could just take clear cutting and non-essential out and just say a special use permit for tree removal.
Okay, hang on. Okay, tree removal modification on any parcel.
I think you can
Or a variance. Is this a variance? No.
take away in hand. Just receiving a special use permit. You don't need in hand.
Yeah, I would get rid of in hand and delete from the clear cutting to non-essential.
Well,
And just say tree removal. There's permitted tree removal and then there's illegal tree removal.
right. Parcel.
Because I mean, when we get cases at the planning boards, part of the site plan is, you know, vegetation and planting schedule and and outlining an area of disturbance. And so, you know, it's not unreasonable to just, I don't think we even need to define what permitted tree removal will be like, because to be honest, it will be evident through the process to be essential.
Well, say a special use permit to do so. I mean, I would do it this way.
Okay.
And just say that they either, we said, I'll fix my typo in a sec here. Okay. So clear cutting is part of commercial logging, except and all non-essential tree removal. Yeah. So these are prohibited. Clear cutting, unless you have, is provided as here, and all non-essential tree removal. These are both prohibited. Commencing or engaging in tree removal modification on any parcel in the scenic overlay district prior to receiving a special use permit to do so.
Do you need an A, receiving a special use permit?
Prior to receiving a, sure. Special use permit to do so shall be punished. And we can disagree about this fine, but we'll get to that in a minute. Anyway, we'll get the rest of the sentence right. Shall be punished by a fine beginning 2 days after notification, pending the ongoing attendance to remediation, which we need to say a little more about what that means. Beginning 2 days of, and now the other thing is, okay, so we'll talk about the fine for a minute. I know it says up to $5,000 a day. I think that if somebody gets a notification, they need, I mean, I don't even know what this is saying. I travel sometimes. Sometimes I don't get my mail for a week. So you're saying, I mean, how do you know somebody was notified? You sent them a letter. Did they pick up the letter? So you sent them a certified mail, and now you know what day they got it. So they got it. Did they throw it in a pile and look at it a week later? So you're saying if somebody has a lot going on and they happen to look at the certified letter a week later, they might have already gotten, because you can start doing the fine 2 days in, they may have a $25,000 fine the day they open it because they opened it a week after they got it, right? So I want to do something that provides for the right communication and response possibility from a person.
Well, let me ask you this, Laura. Whenever we have an applicant come in, we need a point of contact, right? It's not reasonable to expect that an applicant could be unreachable for weeks at a time if an emergent situation arises. So could that be the applicant's architect, the engineer? Could it be, the forester, the arborist? I mean, I am definitely open to adding some clarifying factor to this, but What I'm not married to 2 days, that's for sure. I'm sure a week is reasonable. Maybe even 2 weeks is reasonable, but I don't think much more than that is, given the
Yeah,
way I've
okay.
seen things unfold. And given, again, that we're talking about, these are, not that I don't think it needs to be overcomplicated, but like these are big, important life moves that we're ostensibly these applicants are making. And I think, we should assume that they will be attentive to the process.
They're
Well,
also,
I-
you're also assuming they're applicants.
Oh, what do you mean?
What if they just do all of this and they're not an applicant?
Oh, sure. I'm using applicants maybe a little too generally.
So
When I
you
talk,
you may not have a point of contact. I'm not saying that you're wrong in what you want to do here, but I'm just saying.
yeah. So in that case, yes. So, I mean, to be honest, well, actually, yes and no. I mean, if a violation occurs, it's just hard for me. It's a little hard for me to take, to be sensitive to. It's like if you're on vacation for 2 months and having, some rando come and just lop a bunch of trees down when you're gone and no one can reach you. Should I be very concerned with you accruing a daily fine? Again, it doesn't have to be $5,000 a day, but let me tell you, if someone chopped down half a forest to do something like that, I mean, and they've got the money to go, live somewhere else half the year. This is kind of why having an amount that is variable to that extent, I think, is imperative. Because
Well,
again, it will give the town board or the administrator of that fine a lot of flexibility to be sensitive to, say, like, oh, oops, I cut the wrong tree down, or the things that will happen in between there. But the question on a lot of people's mind is what happens, when like one of these, like Yun, or like I'm having a blank on name, but we have all these applicants, and Jude said, I'm sure other people, that we need to be able to address in a timely manner.
So what happens when there's a violation is that I think Butch actually goes to the property, right? And he
Yes.
must post a violation notice. So it's not just in the mail. There's something, he goes to the property, because I know this just came up. So it's not that somebody wouldn't notice if they were
Yeah.
working there.
We could even put a clause in this law that says the fine is refundable at the discretion of the town board, or whoever the authority, the body of authority that would administer this is. We can put a stipulation that say, at the discretion, this is refundable as long as the remediation is successful, and the fines that are collected pay for whatever was needed to do, by, say, volunteer boards that all of a sudden don't have a budget anymore, to go and help assist in the remediation. And again, it doesn't have to be 500. It doesn't have to be even $500 a day, but it doesn't even have to be a day. I mean, you could,
Well, it's up
really
to
open-ended.
$500, up to 5,000. So it could be $1,
It could be $1. It could be $500 a week. This is a matter of frequency. Is completely open to that. But I think, let's look. The DEC, I believe, is a $10,000 fine a day. So what's the price? What's the price for the scenic overlay? If it's not going to be 10,000 with the DEC, what's it worth to us?
Yeah. So now, Connor, I got a quick question for you. I know that when that guy, and part of, this has happened because of a lot of cases, but there was the one case of the guy, and I forget the guy's name, but I even went up and
Me
did
too.
I did
Roof,
this
the whole
site visit, and they had lopped off the top of trees, and I came to a planning board meeting, and I spoke up against it, and I said, you need to have on the site plan, I recommend that you have tree planting. And then Peter Cross says, well, everybody knows you can't plant a 30-foot tree. Well, I never asked anybody to plant a 30-foot tree.
Yeah.
You know, and I didn't, when I, you know, Peter Cross jumping to the conclusion, oh, we're not going to ask them to plant any trees because you can't plant a 30-foot tree. Well, I know on a hillside you can't plant a 30-foot tree, it's going to fall down, but you can plant a 10-foot tree and it won't fall down and it'll grow into a 40-foot tree. So
Yeah, and that's the thing, because what I'm getting at is that I completely agree with you, and I think Peter's come around since then, because since that conversation we've had other, you know, clarifying meetings where we've shown him the status of this document, and I don't think we've honestly materially changed that much. The stuff that we're doing here and you've already done have been clarifying, and that's wonderful. When in the situation like you brought up, you know, I'm going to throw an arbitrary number out. I'm just going to throw an arbitrary number. Okay. Let's say they came in, the violation was posted, and let's say for argument's sake, in this case, it took them 10 days to respond. Because of the nature of the violation, the amount would already be set, and they start accruing it after, say, 7 days, because we've established a week. They come in and they say, oh my God, I'm so sorry. We didn't tell them to do whatever. They say something and they say, we want to make this better. We say, okay, here's what it costs to plant the 2 trees. Here's what it costs us to do an annual or semi-annual visit. And here's your refund of the fines we gave you, or, you know, or not, whatever, but that's where we go from there. Like, that's our vehicle to do it. And then they go, they plant those 10-foot trees, and they know that if, you know, if those are gonna be checked on, and that means in that checking process, we're gonna see if a bunch of other changes have been made. So that's the process I'm envisioning, where we spurn interaction with the barbed wire of fines and punishment, and hopefully, you know, when we're working with, you know, even-keeled people, they will come to the table in good faith and will be able to make this a very painless process. But again, nothing says enforce your zoning law like giving it some teeth. And to me, I just know there are people who abut DEC lands, you know, in this area. And my God, I bet you they don't come close to those DEC lands, because there are steep fines double what we're proposing here, right in this area, right?
Yeah.
No, wouldn't be able to tell them apart.
One of the things we used to do on the planning board, and you know, was if we required plantings and it was the wrong time of year for plantings, we would hold an escrow until they did. Is that? Okay. The planning board has the ability to do that. But that is also another option.
Oh, and I think, and the thing is the planning board has the authority to ask for escrow. So again, turning over and clarifying that the remediation is to be determined by the planning board or in conjunction with the WC or tree committee, however we want to word that, whoever it is. I think, you know, especially, for example, you find yourself in a situation where maybe the remediation that you have a very, very compliant, well-meaning person you're working with, but it's going to be an expensive fix, more than maybe you've collected from them. Then, you know, then now you've said, all right, so to retain your certificate of occupancy, to retain your special use permit that we have purview over, we now need you to provide us with escrow for this remediation, and then the fine can come out of that, maybe, whatever it is, however we want to work this. I think the number one thing is just making sure that the fines collected, anything collected and not, it needs to be, you know, the money collected needs to pay exclusively for remediation efforts.
Yeah. So here's what I reworded this a bit. And I'm just so that it's more palatable to me.
Oh, I like, yes.
Yeah, I was going to change the 5,000 to 2,000, which, yeah, I know it takes some of the teeth out, but even $2,000 a day, if, you know, if a week has gone by, somebody's up to $14,000. I don't want to bankrupt everybody. Everybody says, oh, if you buy money in the scenic overlay, you're rich and you can afford it. And I don't think
Yeah.
that's true, because you never know. You never know looking at somebody. Like I know somebody who says, well, I use musicians. I know Ed's a musician, and so is Connor. Yeah, I know people that say, oh, they're a musician, they're wealthy. Well, I don't know anything about your guys' wealth, but I personally believe not every musician is wealthy, right? Some, some hit the top of the charts and they probably are rolling in dough, and you got other people who, are not. So you
Well,
can't look at somebody.
I hear you. All I'm gonna say is, while I would love to hear what the rest of the board thinks of that, because while I agree with what you're saying, all this is doing is saying that we can't be that much more aggressive at the discretion. No, you don't have to go to 5,000, but like, I just want to be 100% honest right now. Some of these people buying STRs and doing weird stuff are LLCs, like
But
it's a weird market out there. And I don't,
And
and I'm all I'm
LLC is
saying.
just an LLC is just a person that smacked LLC on their name. I could be an
but
LLC. My late husband
But
was an LLC.
but
It didn't make him rich. But
but
it was,
the
it was,
language
go ahead.
the language that we came into today says a fine up to $5,000 a day. So
Right.
it could be $1, could be 15 cents, could
It
be
could be
$100,
2,000.
could be 2,000. But this gives a clout in case there's really a transgressatory crime committed by people who mar what we moved to Woodstock for, the beautiful upper slopes and the state
I-
forests. And
But
I
if
mean,
you,
if I can be completely honest, I think if we had some sort of, more aggressive schedule like this, not just on this, but on building violations in general, then maybe the Selena or whatever would be up and running now and not just a derelict building. But there is an example of an aggressive multilateral corporation coming in and really swinging its weight around. And again, they were under false pretenses in that case, which is part of why it went the way it did. But I went to that site, and again, not a single permit was issued, and just, it was like a septic tank museum, just like, and they weren't going to tell anyone.
well, let me just
And
go
what do
back to the 2,000 for a minute. So if we said the fine's up to $2,000 a day, and if somebody went a month not doing this, they'd be smacked with a $60,000 fine. Even wealthy people, I think, wouldn't want to be paying a $60,000 fine per month. I can't imagine anybody, if somebody's wealthy, they probably figured out how not to waste their money. And if you said $2,000 a day and somebody ignores you for a whole month, they're looking at a $60,000 fine. So I can't believe there's anybody who would think that was nothing. And if they go for a full year, now they're looking at a $600,000 fine. So I don't know who would not care. So I'm a little confused by this idea that 2,000 wouldn't cause anybody to blink an eye. If they did nothing for a whole year, they're paying they got a $600,000 fine. And I don't care how rich people are. I think anybody's going to care about that.
Okay, so 2 points. I'm with Connor and Ed on this, that I do think that number is important to leave in there. It is an up to, and it depends obviously on what, as Ed said, the transgression is. If it's something really massive, yeah, it should be that big. If it's something minor, then, but the question is, who determines what that number is and how?
Well, that's the thing. If you have an up to, it's going to be subjective.
And then my other question is we put a fine like that in the zoning law, that is not something that has to go to court? Because this is where we always run into problems is, Butch takes somebody to court and nothing happens. So if it's in the zoning law, is that something that can be enforced without having to go to court?
No, I think if anybody breaks the law, I think going to court is how you hold them accountable.
Well, so-
That's my belief.
Okay,
Because if they'll contest it. But all that being said, I do hear what you're saying. It's just that, I mean, again, I'm sure there's a scale of wealth that we can't even possibly appreciate. And I'm not basing this on an arbitrary sort of like, picture of an adult Richie Rich and what would make him wriggle. It's the DEC has a number that is twice what we're proposing. It protects trees and land in the same purview. Like, I mean, really, if we dropped you in the middle of the DEC areas, some of the areas we're really looking to protect, that's what it comes down to. So it's also about putting a value. So here's what I'll say. I would prefer if we vote to send this as is at 5,000. If the town board kicks it back and just says says 2, I'll go with that. But I'd like to see that conversation had at that level.
Okay.
Because
Well, if we were to vote, we have 3 of you say 5. I don't know, David, did you want to weigh in? Or do you like 5, or what do you think about the number 5 for the per day fine? And you're on mute at the moment. Oh, you're on
Hey,
mute,
Dave,
David.
you're
and
muted.
I can't read lips that well. Oh, David, can you get yourself off mute?
He's
If you
got a
can't get-
new, he's got a new computer and
Yeah,
he's having trouble.
so Dave, if he
If
can
you-
put up
if-
fingers of how many $1,000 per day you
There
think
he
it
is.
should.
There he is.
I got it now.
Yay, okay.
I don't know. I mean, I really didn't think it doesn't make any difference, I guess, if the guy will either have a lawyer and try to get it down, but I think it's fine.
You like the 5?
Well, it's
number
okay.
5?
Yeah, okay. So we'll keep the 5 for now. So let's read the sentence again. I made some changes. I crossed out a line. If we can just reread the paragraph to see if it says what people want it to say, because I kind of updated it while we were talking. I'll just say the daily.
Day key.
Yeah, I know, I'll fix that.
Can you just clarifying, just say the fine will be held in escrow? And
Yeah, what was said, if somebody remediates, well, you had mentioned escrow, and I put that in there when you said escrow, but again, I'm not sure if the group agreed to it. It's just I heard it and I thought,
it doesn't make sense that that's what it's held for, but
well, why else would you put it in escrow?
Is it necessarily refundable?
Well, that's a good question.
What I was going to say, what I would add to that is the fine will be held in escrow, refundable at the discretion of the issuing body. And then continue provided the remediation is complete, effective, permanent, which gives the issuing body some parameters to determine that fine.
Mm-hmm.
The issuing body, the planning board?
Well, I'm the issuing body, yes, of the issuing body of the remediation. So so maybe the town board can issue the fine, and the planning board determines when the needs have been met. I mean, I think this is honestly something that could over time be put into like kind of a formula based on the scale of the remediation. There's really 3 things. It's like how much was cut down, how much damage was done to the earth, and what are the resources needed to remediate it. And most of the costs that we would either have to collect or retain from collect in escrow or retain from already collected fines would be determined by that third one, which is what we need to do to remediate it. You know, the scope of the damage is really to determine the fine. But, you know,
I'm just asking, we haven't referred to it, issuing bodies kind of a new term.
Yeah, that's a new term. We don't really know what that
we
means.
can, so we can, let's call it, county escrow refundable.
I'll say it as the town. I'll say it the town.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. Um.
That's vague.
Mhm.
Town what? Town,
Board, I would
town
think, I guess.
board, town planning board, town zoning.
I do like, I honestly feel like this, I mean, I like the idea of there being a volunteer board that has some say in that. I mean, part of me wants to say that, like, again, like we were talking about the tree committee, helping to come up with remediation plans in conjunction with the planning board. So having them perhaps put forward preliminary recommendations for fine levels and frequency, that could be the start. They put a proposal for that, and then the town board accepts it, planning board actions. But that's that part about the tree committees in the next section, I think.
Yeah, it is. So I made more changes as everybody's talking, but I'm not sure if I solved everything people said. I know, I think, Ed, you said you thought saying the town is mushy.
Yeah, but town is a lot of things. There's the clerk, there's the planning board, there's the zoning enforcement officer, there's the assessor. There's a lot of components that
So of those
make
people,
up
well,
the town.
who's actually doing the fine? Is that the zoning enforcement officer? So the zone.
I would
and who
also
is-
say maybe partially refundable too, you know, depending.
Yeah, but to still having the person who establishes the fine and declares
I would-
the fine, who is that?
So I would say it should be the town board, and we should say at the discretion of the town board. I'd like to probably add to section D, I just want to say it out loud, that the tree committee should help recommend fines along these purviews. Again, recommend so that they can send something to the town board. They can tap the planning board with the remediation strategy and tap the town board with fine recommendations, because ultimately I think we'll be asking them to, again, put forward the remediation strategy as well as be the arbiters of annual or semi-annual checkups.
So I would think that the fine would be set by the zoning enforcement officer. It would seem odd to me. The town board
Yeah.
doesn't normally set, doesn't normally do a case by case.
Okay, so then we'll
Well,
say
the town board-
at the discretion. Sorry.
But the town board, for instance, upholds the tree law
Right.
and sets the punishment, it has authority over the provisions of the tree law, the town board.
Yeah, we have authority over it, but
And then,
but we don't say
Well-
bring every case to us though.
because it's, okay. I don't know, but you've
No,
got, if you're going to find somebody, you have to have the person or institution or committee or whatever that actually has the power to levy the fine.
I guess, what does the law say about that? I mean, is it in town, does it have to be in town law or something?
No,
Well, this is town law.
the enforcement
but-
of the
but-
zoning law, it has a section on enforcement.
Yeah.
The zoning law itself has the section on enforcement of the zoning law.
You can see though, we also just threw down there another definition of non-essential to be extra safe, but
Yeah, because
like you
if
said,
it's up,
we did define it up there, so I wanted to see if you guys want to keep that.
well, I kind of would in a way, because it's kind of buried in the text up here, and now it's buried in the text down here, and now it's in the text
Yeah.
down here with the fines. So I'm
I like
I'm
it.
okay
Yeah.
with it being there twice. Well, so I'm looking at my clock and we're 8 o'clock, and I don't like to go beyond an hour and a half for this
Okay.
call. I think
Okay.
we've done an excellent job. We can kind of gel on this. I think we've had some great discussion. So I think what
It's
was
really
really great.
just the tree committee after this, right? Just the tree committee is the last section.
Well, it is. But what I'll say is, it's kind of like what we did before. Was we we had spent a lot of time on, where are we? This first paragraph last time, and this time we just spent a little bit of time on it because we already thought about it. And now we're gonna have we'll start with the tree committee. But let me come.
Could you send this to everybody?
I
Yes,
sure
please.
will.
All right, I have to go. It's
All right.
very late.
Okay.
for-
Yes.
I didn't think it was gonna last this long. so.
Thank you, Ed. Thank you
Yeah.
all for humoring me. I know I asked for this, so thank
No,
you.
that's all
Yeah.
right. We're
And
with you.
And I will send it out. I think we're having excellent discussion, and I think it's becoming stronger each time. So anyway,
Yeah.
do I have any motions to adjourn?
So moved.
So move, Connor. Yay! I heard Jude say thank. All in favor? Aye.
All right.
Night.
Okay.
So I do have a quick little announcement of sorts.
Okay.
I recently got a new job,
Oh.
and it's been great. It's actually the first time I'm working in my field in a long time.
Oh,
Uh,
okay.
and
And your field is?
and
I know you're a musician. What do
well,
you consider your field?
I have a degree in arts administration, like
Oh.
non-for-profit 501c3 management.
Mhm.
And I'm working at White Feather Farm now. That is to say, I have put in officially my resignation from the planning board.
Oh, okay.
There's been a little too much bleed over for me, and when I realized I wasn't going to be able to make this next meeting on sort of a dime, it just got thrown at me. I thought, as not that I want to leave, but I put in almost 8 years at this point.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
But that being said, I'd like to continue to remain on this board,
Oh, good.
and see a couple more issues through, for sure. And but I wanted to share that with you guys,
Okay.
just because it's a big change, and you'll probably hear about it.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Yes. So, yep. Well, it's sometimes it's just time to make these moves, and I'm glad you're sticking with us, because I appreciate, I thank you for, as we walk through the scenic overlay, I know you feel very passionate about it. So as we're talking about, we have things that it sounds like people on this call are very passionate about working on in our next set of things on the list. So
Yes.
I appreciate the extra pairs of hands to help as we approach what we're doing here.
Oh, I'm
Congratulations
really.
on your job, Connor, and thanks for all your work on the planning board.
Oh, thank you. And thank you, Jude. I mean, you're a wonderful addition. It's been so nice to have you here and have your input. It's so great. And all of you. I really think we're doing good work here. So I'm just humbled and grateful to be a part of it. So thank you.
Well, thanks. And I'm thrilled that we have two laws that are about to cross the finish line, and we have more we can do. So you say your job is, what do you say? Something feather? What was that you said?
Yeah, White Feather Farm. Nobody knows where it is, and that's going to be something I'm hoping to rectify. But it shares a parking lot with New World Home Cooking on the way over to Saugerties, which is beautiful little diamond in the rough. Not that, I mean, our rough is pretty beautiful up here, but like, all I'm saying is this is a really nice little farm, and they have this beautiful 1700s restored Dutch barn that they throw music and educational events in. It's gorgeous.
And so what are you doing? So you're doing music, or tell me again what you're doing?
I'm the program coordinator. So essentially,
cool.
I was looking not to do as much of this, though I'll probably be a little bit involved in booking next year. And then what happens is when we book an act or an event, I take it over from there and just sort of cradle to grave, contract negotiation, staging. I could run sound. I mean, I could run the whole event pretty much by myself from there.
Right.
But right now it's just about getting some programming together for next year. Because my God, no one knows this place exists, and it's a prime. People need to go there. They have farmers markets on Saturday in the spring if you want to check that out. Really.
Well, that's cool. Well, and of course, as we all know, it's close by, right? New World Home Cooking is really close by. So, yeah,
And
cool.
it's
Very
only
cool.
like 5.
Different zoning laws.
All right.
Have a good night,
All
everybody.
right. See you soon, Jude.
Thanks.
Thank
And
you,
thanks for-
Laura. And see you
Yeah.
later, Dave.
Yeah, thanks
See ya.
everybody. And thanks for sharing, Connor. Thanks everybody.
Bye.
Have a good